Welcome to another episode of Growing E-commerce. We are your hosts, Mike Ryan and
Chris.
Thank you for joining us today.
What do we have today?
Chris, let's get right into it. We have some data with us today. We brought some data up our sleeves.
I think interesting data.
Yeah. Data.
I would even say that every data you bring up is interesting, but this one is maybe even a bit more special because the market is really it's a big unknown.
Yeah.
It's a big unknown.
Well, thanks, Chris, because the secret reality is that most data is boring and it's hard work to find the interesting part inside of it.
Yeah, really. And unless you can connect it to, the real challenges clients have, and I think this is the perfect segue, because as far as I know, is that the market is not fully sold on, for instance, AI Max or search, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of two technologies I want to talk about today. AI Max for search, and just as a recap, this is a new DSA-like technology introduced by Google. They basically, in DSA, this is a way of matching landing pages and search terms, generating headlines, stuff like that. And this technology lived inside of search as dynamic search ads. It also lived inside of PMAX.
Yes.
And Google decided that rather than bringing search to PMAX, as they've done with some other campaign types, migrating campaign types, they want to take the PMAX into search. What the confusing part for me is that it already kind of was there in the form of dynamic search ads. So we now have a situation where there are three very similar technologies as each other. Dynamic search ads, AI Max, and PMAX, the search part of PMAX, all doing very similar activities, similar goals.
And by the way, let's be clear about DSAs, dynamic search ads. This has been a fucking great technology, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It has been here for years, and I mean, by the way, before we jump into the numbers and what you find or found, what is your take on dynamic search ads as a standalone campaign type? Do you see a bright future for it? Do you see it being sunsetted because it's embedded in PMAX and AI Max search? What's your take on it?
Oh, it's dead as a doornail. it's dead.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that bold, but
yeah, I'll go ahead and be that bold. I've been. I mean, actually,
how much time is left? I want to put you on the spot now.
By this time next year, it will be already gone.
Wow,
that's my prediction.
Wow,
and I've made so. I mean, I already saw a redundancy between DSA and PMAX. When PMAX was launched, I was like, let's see how that's going to go. And it, they haven't touched it since then. There's a lot of about 20% of search advertising costs, at least in e-commerce,
still
seem to be running through there. So that's a lot of money.
That's a lot, yeah.
And they need to be careful with how they do these things. I think they were evaluating that strategy. There were focus groups. Should we migrate search to PMAX? What should we do here? And this is where they've come up. But it's now at a point where there are three highly equivalent technologies. Two of them are in Google's so-called Power Pack.
The future of search.
Yeah, these are their smiled upon technologies, as I would say. They've received the blessing. And, it's clear that dynamic search is left over. So I've seen Google migrations and sunsets come and go. And my prediction is that in early 2026, they're going to announce that DSA is being upgraded to AI Max. And then, they want that resolved by end of September so that everything's set up for the holidays. We see this pattern time and again with expanded text ads, with shopping migrating to PMAX. This is the recipe.
This is what they do. Yeah. And I mean, ladies and gents, this is big news because, as you stated, roughly, what is it, 20% still running through DSAs?
Yeah. So that's the level that we're talking about.
It's huge. DSAs. Doesn't matter if it's in the accounts we run for our clients or the accounts we have analyzed throughout the last couple of years. It's a great campaign type. It's a great technology. this campaign tab will be sunsetted. The technology lives on, so to speak, but embedded in PMAX and AI Max for search.
Exactly.
And the most important thing is, again, before we jump into numbers, Google will, of course, the great marketers they are, call it's upgraded.
Yeah.
Is it? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But is it a no-brainer?
Yeah, it's not a migration. I mean, it's
an upgrade.
It's an upgrade. We saw this time and again.
I loved it.
Yeah, me too.
But what's your take on it, man?
Well, I mean, so that's not official information, but I'm very sure that this is what will happen. It's just been clear for a while. Yeah, I mean, that's like, well, let's talk about a couple of numbers first. Like right now, we're seeing that about 12% of accounts have some level of AI Max activity in the account.
So it's just activation, doesn't correlate with spend share, or is it the 12% related to the spend already running?
No, not yet. Like the spend is at small levels right now, and that's because it's not activated in all campaigns, and even when it is activated in a campaign, it is basically one match type among others, among 4 or more match types now. So, if we look at the search spend at an account level, it's typically at less than 1% of at that level. But if you look within campaigns where it's activated, then it jumps up. It's like 5% of cost within campaigns where it's activated.
Still low for. I can't assume this is satisfying for Google.
Well, I don't know. I disagree. It's early. Like, we did earnings on our last episode, and the statement that their chief business officer made back then was that it's growing very fast. And I mean, of course they say that, but I mean, I think that it just went to general availability recently. It's only been, it's been in beta and stuff like that, gradually rolling out. So I think that 12% of accounts
active, from that perspective,
testing it. It's not really well adopted in those accounts yet, but the foothold is there. And then this all won't matter because I think that there'll be a migration, and it will, we remember this with PMAX. We saw this gradual, organic, or naturally occurring rise in cost share, and then it went vertical due to the migration, and then it found its level. And I think that'll happen with AI Max.
May I correct you? It's not a migration; it's an upgrade.
I said, I'm sorry.
It's an upgrade.
Thank you.
Man. Let's. Again, I mean, I was pretty bold with regards to Google in the last episode. I think they have a great set of products. I think Google is doing a lot of things right. I think they're listening to the market way more than they have been listening to the market for the last 10 years. So there's a lot of good things going on. What I see is not just talking to our clients, also following some influencers, including you, my favorite one.
Thanks.
There's not... the direction to AI Max search is not that most positive. And what I would be interested in, I think this is pretty normal. New campaign tabs get shit on a lot. It's just the first reaction by the online marketers to something new. But if you cut out all the noise, Mike, what do you see? What are the numbers already telling a story? Although it's very early. What do you have here?
I basically.
And what's your take on it?
Sure. Well, I mean, I agree that Google has been much more, let's say, amenable to advertisers, or it's felt more like a partnership again. And the first reaction, including mine, to AI Max was pretty positive, I would say. Like, it offers, search term reporting was available from the get-go, and that's not to be taken for granted.
No, this is you.
And there's these good levels of customization. They really split it out into kind of 3 main features, and you can mix and match these, turn off what you want or don't want. And so from a product design standpoint, I really like it. And then from a performance standpoint, though, that hasn't been so satisfying. We talked in the past about it bidding on competitor terms and stuff like that. These were based on really sample sizes of one.
Way too
I was
small,
looking
yeah.
around. Because that's how I was looking in single campaigns and seeing what's going on there. And it's a bit opposite because like PMAX was pretty satisfying from a performance standpoint, and from a feature standpoint, it was lacking. But I feel like AI Max right now,
It's the opposite.
Yeah, it has good features, but the performance isn't quite there.
And before we jump into the performance numbers, I'm really interested in, because I haven't seen them. I think I know where we're going here. We're not talking probably about the most positive numbers, but let's dissect this in a minute. You know what I found interesting is from a product marketing or product management launch strategy, it's quite interesting that Google launched a product with AI Max or Search where you instantly have a pretty clear understanding if this campaign type is performing, yes or no.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have chosen differently, right? There were ways to do it differently, but especially a search term report, I completely understand what this is. There an increment, yes or no? And now the question is, do the numbers support the story of Google that this is the future of search, or is it hurting the story? I found it very interesting. That I love it that Google did it that way.
But they open themselves to
to market feedback, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is numbers driven.
Yeah.
But Mike, what do you have? What are the numbers telling
Well,
us?
I looked at over 250, so actually 271 campaigns that have AI Max activated. It's a first sample.
It's decent, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started writing bigger reports about PMAX, we had like 3,000 or something, and we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there with AI Max for sure. But I still think there's a lot of impressions and clicks and conversions tied up in here, and so it's not a bad sample. And I'm comparing it like against broad match, exact match, phrase match, but it's not perfectly fair. Like, you wouldn't really want to compare AI Max to exact match because they're serving different roles in a campaign type. But I think it's fairest to compare it to broad match.
Yes,
because
makes sense.
broad match is supposed to help you expand your coverage.
It's about incrementality, right?
It's about, exactly. And in the sense of on top, and not in the sense of like marketing incrementality that's causative or something, but it should find you conversions that you were missing before, or opportunities to convert that you were missing before. And you wouldn't expect maybe the best performance for something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Google says that they can deliver 14% more conversions at a similar efficiency target. They do mention that that's for non-retail campaigns. And of course, we're in e-commerce and we're talking about retail campaigns.
Interesting.
But for retail, it doesn't look that nice.
So just to be precise here, so Google is literally saying that the incremental return on ad spend of these incremental conversions should be more or less on the same level than the return on ad spend of your core existing search setup.
Exactly.
That's a hell of a statement. I mean, that would be a no-brainer, right, to activate it?
Oh, yeah, it would be. That's the dream. Really, who wouldn't accept?
Where can I sign up?
Who wouldn't accept 14% more conversions
at the same ROAS,
the same efficiency? Because that's just, there's always a trade-off that if you go and chase down those next conversions, you're going to accept diminishing returns. But they're saying that with this technology in non-retail campaigns, that won't happen, and I think it's a bold claim.
Yeah, it's a bold statement, and this leads me always to this question on super high meta level. I mean, where are these 14% additional conversions are coming from? I mean, let's assume everyone is adopting AI Max.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Is there from one day to another 14% more demand, or I just don't get it.
If you would be the one advertiser who had this secret power that no one else has,
awesome,
fine.
There is it. The 14%.
It's a commoditized technology within the platform. Anyone can use it.
I mean, it's so interesting. And
yeah,
many Googlers. I know many Googlers. They have the smartest people. But this is I don't understand how this whole narrative. I mean, maybe the online retailers buy this straight up. But this would be the first question. Okay, these 14%, they might be there if I'm an early adopter.
Yeah.
But down the line.
They could be there if your campaign is not well built and it's missing a lot of and there's low-hanging fruit that you're just missing, and maybe for there's maybe a lot of advertisers out there where that's the case, but if your campaigns are
somehow set up well,
this
it's
happen.
interesting. Okay, but this is the claim of Google. But to be fair here, for non-retail, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But we're neither here nor there because we're retail, so that it is what it is. Let's assume that there's I guess a reason they don't make a performance claim for retail, but we're gonna tell you what that looks like. So I'm gonna just compare AI Max and Broad Match. We'll put this on screen for viewers as well, and we'll just run down some metrics here. So, click-through rate. AI, or let's say we'll start with Broad Match as kind of the status quo. 2.3%. AI Max 2%. Okay, good. Who cares? Fine. Conversion rate. Broad Match 5.6%. Pretty high if you ask me. AI Max 4.6%. So it's a full percentage point less. Starting to be a bit concerning, but I don't think that that's a bad conversion rate.
No, by the way, it's a strong conversion rate.
Yeah. And CPC, here we go. Broad Match, €1.57. AI Max, €1.58. They seem everything's fine so far. Fine-ish.
Very comparable.
And then this is where I get a little concerned. Cost per conversion. This is also sometimes called CPA, cost per action. Your action is usually but
conversion.
Yeah, but Broad Match, €28. We'll say $27.98. AI Max, $34.21. So that's costing you several euros more per conversion.
40-50% more.
Yeah, exactly. That's
that's huge.
Yeah, and then and the average order value. Let's jump down to this. Broad Match, $112, and AI Max $89. So this is where it starts to break down. You are paying more per order, and these orders are less valuable. And this results in a ROAS difference where Broad Match is clocked at 4 and AI Max is clocking at 2.6. Yeah. And so this is where you see it fall apart.
This is huge. My question, let's say I'm walking in the shoes now of an e-commerce director of an online shop, is because again, the ROAS of 4 compared to
2.6 against
2.6, 4, huge drop. Depending on, what my margin situation is, I can live with the 2.4, 2.6, yes or no. But the most important question for me would be, are the AI Max or search conversions really incremental? Or are they eating into something what I already have? Because the worst case, of course, would be, this new campaign type, dubbed as the future of search from Google, is eating into my existing search setup at a worse ROAS.
Yeah.
Do we have? Can we evaluate this? What's your take on it?
It's possible to evaluate, but it would take. I think what it would take is you would need to map the search terms and see
compared to each other.
and see if they're being covered by other match types. And that's a big lift to do something like that because search term data is just huge. It's just it's vast.
If someone can do it, you plus some data engineers, maybe.
I mean, if I can do it.
The question is if I want to.
I can do it.
But
my anecdotal observation and my gut feeling is that that's not the case. That's not
okay.
I think that it's not finding so many unique.
It's not purely incremental.
Yeah, not purely
incremental. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but this, because if I look, I think every online retailer, depending on, of course, other factors, but I think every online retailer is forced to grow, right?
Yeah.
Now the question is, how can I grow? I can go up a funnel, like demand gen we talk about in a minute. And then I have probably also my lower funnel where I can activate a new campaign type, such as AI Max or search. If it's really incremental, then maybe I can even live with a worse ROAS.
Yeah.
Because this is what new clients cost me, right?
It's a trade-off, yeah.
Because I think this is very important to have this nuanced discussion about AI Max for search. If it's really incremental, don't shit on AI Max for search just for bringing a worse ROAS. This is what the reality is.
Yeah.
when it comes down to bringing new clients to your game.
But
if
your
it's
new
not
customer ROAS will never be the same as your existing customer ROAS. Yeah.
exactly, and if it's really incremental to what you have, I think a worse ROAS is completely acceptable. The question is it really incremental?
Yeah.
This would be the most important question for me.
Yeah, and I mean,
maybe Google has some data. Maybe we can talk to them.
Yeah, we can ask them, and there are, this can be solved through testing, and it just takes some work. Google's also, that's why Google's getting into the marketing mix model game with Meridian and stuff like that. They want to be in these conversations. Actually, they want to own those conversations if they can. But
and if someone could do it, it's Mac. Man, let's think about it.
Yes,
but to understand you correctly, Mike, your anecdotal evidence and of course the vast knowledge you have, you don't think that what you have seen that AI mix search is purely incremental?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I, to be clear, I don't find this situation like damning. I'm not going to tell people hands off AI Max, but I think it's very important to go in with eyes wide open.
Exactly, and to control it.
Yeah, and also, like we've talked about in the past, make sure that if its genius idea is to find competitor terms that you purposely weren't bidding on before. You can handle that with brand exclusions. You can add competitor
exactly.
brands
You can force AI Max to work smarter for you. Yeah,
exactly. You can handle some of this stuff with negative keywords. So I think it's in a early and rather unoptimized state. And another huge complexifying factor I just want to quickly mention, I said that this technology is 3 times redundant.
Yes.
And that is the next thing that I looked at. I wanted to find out what other technology these advertisers are using. And so when AI Max is activated, I found that roughly, we can put the numbers up on the screen, the exact numbers, but roughly 1 in 5 times, they're also using dynamic search ads. Between a quarter and a third of the time, they're also using PMAX. So there's a redundancy there. And
we're talking about the activation of DSAs in different forms of 3 times, right? In different campaign types.
Yeah,
that's the worst case you have.
Well, yeah, and that's the next case, which is that in about 1 in 2 of these advertisers are using all 3 technologies. They're using AI Max, DSA, and PMAX all at the same time. And this is, I can't tell you for sure if that's bad for performance, but I don't think it's good for performance. I think there's a risk that you're competing against yourself because of this ad rank thing we've talked about in the past. I think that at the very least, it's splitting data between campaigns needlessly. And between different match types and so on, and reports. I just think it's not hygienic.
No, and I think the hypothesis can be made, unless we get more clarity on how they solve the ad rank question, that you are maybe, if worst cases, like I said, all the things you said now is true. But for me, the biggest thing which stands out is if you're not absolutely sure that you're not competing against yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, So, but this is very, very interesting. Okay, 1 out of 2.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's a lot. And so that what's left, by the way, there's only 7% of the advertisers are exclusively using AI Max,
which will be the probably.
It's the purest form. It's the purest form to choose one of these technologies. And I'm not saying that you can't use 2 of them side by side if you think it through and it's done well. I think using 3 of them side by side though is not,
it doesn't make sense.
It's not necessary. You can't convince me that's a good idea.
Before we really makes a lot of sense, man. But before we jump on to demand gen, the second child of the PowerPack family. So AI Max for search, again, of course, it's here to stay. I think would it be a smart advice for, I don't know, listeners out there? You have to test it in some way, shape, or form because it's here to stay. And the good thing is, the product design, shout out to Google, they gave you leverages to control it, right? Yeah,
exactly.
So this
you can make this work better. You can optimize it. I think it's too early to draw conclusions because it's a new technology from Google's side. They're definitely going to improve it. It's new for these advertisers. They're going to improve what they're doing on their side.
course, yeah.
And, in 18 months from now, we could be having a totally different conversation. But
Let's hope for.
like what happened with
Yeah,
PMAX.
fair. Exactly. PMAX came a long way, and we became friends of PMAX.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if we are there yet to call ourselves friends of demand gen, but I think we were very positive about this campaign type. What do you have for us today, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I've liked demand gen from day one. I always wanted to like discover campaigns. That's what came before, and basically what they did with demand gen was to add more types of more placements in there. And at first, it was kind of like the cream of the crop from the PMAX placements. It was everything that you really want to have in there. Over time, on the positive side, they've increase the transparency and the controls. You can see what's going on in all these channels. You can also target these channels. So that's really strong. I mean, on the negative side, they've added in more of the what I would call fluff inventory. But again, you can see what's going on and you can opt out of it. So I like demand gen in principle, and what it needed was the ability to scale, and that is what Google has really given it. The primary way that they've done it is by adding in YouTube. We were talking in the last episode about what was YouTube's. I think YouTube's up like 15% in the last quarter, and I think demand gen has been a part of YouTube's numbers for the past few quarters, and will be ahead. I think it's a YouTube buying engine. So just to jump into that a little bit. Give me one sec. Yeah. So what I did, I called this the economics of demand gen. I took all the network types that, these are, you might call them the channels or the networks that demand gen can serve on, like YouTube, Discover, Gmail, Google Display. I don't have a lot of Maps data yet, so that's not in there. And then I also took the ad type, which is it an image ad, a video ad, a product ad, or a carousel? And then I looked at every combination of those, and I looked at every cost metric that I could kind of think of. And one of the reasons that I did that is because demand gen. We talked on a previous episode about what is a click and so forth, but demand gen is neither purely a cost per click channel nor a CPM channel, or even a cost per engagement channel. It can use all three of these billing models together, and this also depends on your bidding strategy. It's quite complex in how it gets billed. So I thought that people should see what those different billing metrics are in every possible format. But at a high level, the most interesting thing to me is the percentage cost share, and it's more than 50% YouTube video ads. So to circle back to what I was saying about it, YouTube is the scaling engine of demand gen, and demand gen is also a scaling engine of YouTube monetization. But I think that this is a win-win for Google and advertisers. I have a positive sentiment toward the technology.
I think so too. And we had a great discussion with European product lead of demand gen and YouTube at the European headquarters of Google. And what I found very interesting, so this man knows his stuff. Was absolutely deep and thorough discussions about how Google sees demand gen and what they are basically aiming at with this campaign type. And what I found very interesting, Mike, in one of our episodes, we talked about in our talks in different stages, in different places of the world. Our take on demand gen was let it do its thing, and the thing demand gen is really good at is generating new demand, but don't force it to be your performance channel, right? Don't look at incrementality in terms of revenue, and it's. The interesting thing was the product lead we were talking to more than 1 hour. he was absolutely convinced that demand gen can be a performance-oriented channel.
Yeah.
And that Google is really trying,
Yes,
with everything they have, to build this product to be that lower upper funnel demand generation machine, but with this clear purpose of it's about performance, because they understand that, especially for online retailers, it is about performance.
Yeah.
What is your take on this? I found it very interesting.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I wasn't in that conversation, but I can see that Google is doing this, and I find it a little bit confusing. Because I mean, I totally get it. Like, if you look at the sales decks, Google sales decks for demand gen, and the way they position it, they really position it against paid social, but they're talking about meta ads basically. Yeah, and and it's a tricky spot for them because they want to have this mid-funnel narrative, and that it's doing some of this branding, and that it's like going to support your search lift and your brand lift, and that you'll pick up this performance on your other campaigns down the funnel. But that narrative alone is deeply unsatisfying to someone who's spending on Meta.
Yeah.
Because yes, Meta is a demand generation channel, but it also performs. And I think that's what Google is trying to square this circle, and they're definitely, you can see with features they've been rolling out, they're getting more interested in a performance narrative for this. But my problem is that the further you get interested in this, like, it's hard for them. These are the same channels that they're running with PMAX.
That's it.
And it's hard to not collapse these things. That's the problem. I'm not saying that demand gen couldn't be a performance channel.
No,
but if it were, it would be called PMAX.
That's the thing. And by the way, I really love the take of Google on this to understand how important that the performance narrative of a campaign that even in mid and upper funnel is, because you talk to many clients, Mike, especially for clients where they are not maxed out, let's say, in their PMAX campaign in terms of impression share. So there's money left they can spend in PMAX.
Yeah.
Why in the blue hell should I go to demand gen when there's still market to be made with PMAX at a better return on ad spend? So I think this is also maybe a logical error in the narrative, because if it's performance driving, it has to be at least at the same level of PMAX, because else I especially if I can still make market with PMAX, right?
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Mike, that I think demand gen should be seen as something different, and demand gen is great at that.
Yeah.
In really doing something to a brand, in generating demand, but there is not this direct impact. And I think the more they try to be in this performance narrative, the trickier it might be to have a clear decision framework. Okay, as an online retailer, where should I spend my money now?
Yeah.
So I absolutely understand where you're coming from.
I think
because there's so much overlap, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like, the thing is, the way people, I think the market at large understood PMAX when it rolled out, they thought it was a full funnel campaign type, and that, like, they're like, oh, it has Google Display in there, so it's doing some branding and stuff like that, and it's got some kind of a multi-touch effect.
But it's a shopping campaign.
Yeah, and even there is display in there, but it's remarketing, and so it's not a full funnel. It's really, Google has been clear about this. It's a bottom funnel campaign type, and when I hear what they're trying to do with demand gen, it's almost like they would need to build them together to build that full funnel campaign, because that it really would do what people imagined PMAX would do back then.
And PMAX is not good at that. No. And I think this is the great narrative I see. And by the way, I think the strongest narrative when we talk about demand gen is with PMAX, which is basically a shopping campaign. You are very much tied to kind of an existing client pool, right? And PMAX is good at maxing out the performance within this existing client.
Yeah.
But if you want to think beyond, let's say, this fiscal year, you should think about, okay, where can I create really new clients and new client potential for me? And this is where demand gen, I think, is really great at. But it's not this direct performance impact.
Totally. I think that demand gen and PMAX make a good pair together.
Yes, if you do it correctly.
Yeah, if you let them each play their role. But it's so hard to show that. And this is Google's pain point. And they're focusing on how can we show demand gen. But they shouldn't really be focusing on showing the performance of demand gen in and of itself. They need to focus on showing how demand gen makes PMAX better, or how these two things work together.
Exactly.
And that's hard. Meridian is something that could help with that maybe, but it's not simple to do. So,
because look, I mean, that's something we have to understand as one of the biggest partners of Google is also, I think, the correct expectation management. I think the worst thing you can do is to start demand gen and be not clear about what to expect, right? In terms of walking in the shoes of the client, it's not that direct 1 month performance driving campaign. It's not. And this is, I think, by the way, I think Google is working on that very fiercely to make it clear and to make it obvious what's not even the short term, but the mid and long term effect of doing demand generation. Because that's the game you're in.
Totally. And
you have to feed the beast, right?
And I think that they picked the wrong fight by comparing themselves to Meta and paid social, because if you look at the properties that are in there, like a Discover feed it's not the same thing as a social feed.
Sure not.
They're similar, but it's somehow
it's different.
It's not the same thing. And YouTube is, I would say, it's not really social media, and it's not really a feed channel. These things are similar but different from what Meta has in Instagram and Facebook. And that's just it is what it is. So I think I like the technology. I think it's going through an awkward phase in terms of product strategy, but
it's a great technology, and I really believe in demand gen. And by the way, I believe in I don't know, especially for online retailers who are so much focused on performance. And I totally get it. You have margin pressure, you have to grow. It's all about the incremental ROAS. But if you have a beast at your hands, which is PMAX, and we know that PMAX is working, especially if you do it correctly, right? If you do it the right way, you still have to think beyond where is your next growth pocket.
For sure.
And demand gen is good at that.
Yeah.
You have to do it correctly.
Absolutely.
What a wrap, huh?
Yeah, that was a good note 10 on this. Let's end it.
Thanks, man. I'm proud of myself.
Cool.
But I think the outro will be again the highlight of this episode.
Let's go for it, Chris. All right, we'll leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Growing E-commerce, brought to you by Smarter E-commerce, also known as SMEC. You can learn more at smarter-ecommerce.com. And as always, it's been our pleasure. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.